Hi, my name is Dr. Parker Ryan with Ryan Chiropractic Clinic, and I just wanted to shoot a short video today to help us understand why we're so sick, what makes us sick, and how do we get and stay well. We have this whole thing going on right now with this COVID-19 or coronavirus, and as you've seen, it's a very small percentage of people that actually get really sick. So what's the difference between those that get sick and some of us don't even get any symptoms at all, but yet we can be infected with the virus? So what I want to talk today about is why that happens. So what it boils down to really is stress, and that stress can be physical, it can be chemical, and it can be emotional. Your body really doesn't care which one it is. It's going to react the same to each situation. What we have to understand is that all of the cells in our body they're either in growth or they're in protection. It's never both. And we can't have health if our cells are in protection. So if our body, if it basically interprets our environment, whether chemical, emotional, or physical, as being a threat, it will go into protection mode. And so those cells can no longer grow and divide like they're supposed to. So again, if your mind perceives that your environment's threatening, your cells go into protection. What happens when you basically, your brain thinks of something as a stressor? It sends signals to your hypothalamus. Your hypothalamus is pretty much like the thermostat in a room. So it's going to determine what's going on in your body. And if it perceives that there's a stress, it will send signals to the pituitary gland, or what we call the master gland. The pituitary gland, again, if there's stress in our environment, it then sends signals to our adrenal glands. And our adrenal glands release stress hormones. The problem with that is when our adrenals fire up, that puts us in a state of what we call fight or flight. And certain things happen when we go into fight or flight, but probably the biggest and most important thing is that when we're in fight or flight, or what we call our sympathetic system is fired up, it actually takes blood and energy from certain areas of our body and distributes it to other areas of the body. So let's look at that for a minute. The main place that we want our blood and energy going to if we're in fight or flight, under any kind of stress, it basically goes to our arms and our legs. That's why it's called fight or flight. Our body is expecting us to either fight what's in front of us or to run away from it. But here's the catch. If you're giving blood or giving energy to one system, we have to take it from somewhere else. So where is that blood? Where is that energy coming from? The main place that it takes it from are our immune system, our digestive system, and our reproductive systems. So we have to understand that our gut is really responsible for about 80% of our immune system, and our gut lining actually gets replaced every 3 days. So our gut has to be in a state of growth. And again, our cells, they can't be in both at the same time. They can't be in protection mode and growth mode at the same time. So if they go into protective mode, then our gut lining doesn't reproduce. All the cells in our body are not reproducing like they're supposed to. So we see degenerative changes more quickly. So we're all infected, and I think this is really important to understand, that we're infected with most viruses and bacteria that are around all the time. We actually learn to live with these things. We literally have millions of bacteria, billions of bacteria and viruses that we're exposed to and are on us or in us at all times. So when we look at this, we have to understand that we don't usually catch a disease. We mostly live with it. But some of us, our immune system doesn't function properly enough because our baseline health isn't good enough to have a healthy immune system. And so when that happens, those bacteria and those viruses, then they start to reproduce or replicate, and that causes us to be sick or ill. So we have to look at it. Is it the seed or the soil? It's a little bit of both, right? I mean, when we have something new, like COVID-19 coming through our society, yes, that can cause a lot of people to become ill. But again, there's a difference between just catching the virus and then your underlying health status, the soil. Because if your soil is good, then that bacteria, that virus, it's not going to really take root because they're called opportunistic organisms for a reason. They're not looking for a healthy body to invade. They're looking for a sick, unwell body to invade. If you have a healthy immune system, the chances of you having really bad symptoms from a disease like COVID-19, they're actually very low. And as you've seen through all the reports, it's pretty much the people in our society that have a lot of chronic diseases, underlying heart disease, diabetes, obesity, lung cancers, things like that that are being affected. And so if you have a healthy immune system, typically we can fight these things off, and a lot of times we won't even know that we had it. So what we have to understand is that when we're under stress, again, it can be physical, chemical, or emotional. One problem we're having right now in society is the amount of mental stress because of everything that's going on. So when we're under stress, again, physical, chemical, emotional, I know I keep saying that, but because the reason I do that is most people think that when we say stress, they think just emotional, and I don't want you to just think about that. So when we're under stress, it shuts down growth. We already talked about that. It shuts down the immune system. Let's think about that for a minute. If, let's say you were a gazelle out in the wild and you're getting chased by a cheetah, right? Does your body really care if it's trying to fight off a bacterial infection or a viral infection? Do you think it cares about reproducing or digesting its food? Not at all. All it cares about in those next couple of minutes is getting away from that immediate threat. And so stress is actually a good thing if we have it for short periods of time, and it can help us get out of a bad situation. But long term, those same hormones that are there and designed to get us out of a bad situation quickly can actually cause long-term disease and even death in the long run. So the other thing that we have to look at, so we talked about how it shuts down growth in the immune system. The other thing that it actually shuts down is conscious reasoning, because the blood vessels that go to the front part of our brain, that's what we use to have conscious reasoning. And when we're under stress, it actually, again, constricts those blood vessels just like it does in your gut. And so what happens is that drives the blood to what we call your reflex behavior part of your brain, or what I call the crocodile brain. So it goes into primitive reflex. So our reasoning goes down and we actually become less intelligent and make poorer decisions when we're in stress mode or fight or flight, especially when we're in a fear mode. So one of the problems that we see right now is the media, right? I mean, the media is literally selling us stress day in and day out. I mean, what other time can you remember where they have death counts sitting on the side of every news program and every channel, counting how many deaths there are? Can you imagine if we did this with heart disease, if we did it with cancer, if we did it with suicide, alcoholism, day in and day out? We'd all be under so much stress, worried that we're going to die from these things, that we wouldn't be able to go through life well. And so it's actually causing more stress. So the more that we kind of buy into this media hype that it's the end of times and that everybody's going to die and everybody's going to get sick, that stresses us out. And the fact that we're all made to stay home and that people's businesses are going under because of all this, that's more stressful and causes people to become more sick. So some of the things that we're doing and some of the things that we're seeing in the media, I would argue, are a little bit counterproductive to what we should be doing. We have to understand that this virus, it's the same in everybody, right? When you get it, it doesn't matter. We all get the same virus. But again, there's some of us that can get the virus and we won't even have any symptoms. Some people might have the sniffles, and some people it might get relatively bad where they have a fever and maybe tightness in their chest, shortness of breath. But it's a very, very small percentage of people that actually have to go to the hospital and get treatment that way. So the variable that this all boils down to between what makes us healthy and what makes us sick is our baseline health status or our immune system. So what's the difference between two groups, between who's healthy and who's sick? Basically, again, it comes down to that baseline health. And we need to take care of ourselves. And what does that look like? We need to eat right, we need to think right, and we need to move right. If we have a lack of any of those things, that causes stress. So again, the physical things that we talk about can be lack of movement. A lot of us don't exercise very much. That's a huge stressor on the body, and the body looks at that as a threat. If we're eating really crappy foods all the time, like so many of us do, it's amazing to me that right now the country is trying to fight off this disease, but you go into a store right now and you can't find Cheetos, right? You can't find chips, you can't find those things, but all the fresh produce, all the fresh meats, all the fresh vegetables and fruits, they're just sitting there. Hardly anybody's buying them. So we're taking the wrong approach. We're not looking at our underlying health in order to take on disease. Instead, we're just trying to look for, well, what's the next fancy drug, the next fancy vaccine that we might be able to come up with that can help us out. And don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place for everything. And when we have very sick people like this, we definitely need those kind of things for them. But going forward, we need to look at how do we prevent things like this from happening in the future. And the only way to do that is to increase our baseline health. So again, it comes down to eating right, thinking right, and moving right. And I'd love to do some more videos on you guys that would dig even deeper into this. I'd like to talk more about how the immune system works, what the positives and negatives of germ theory are, and how it affects our lives. I'd also like to dig in a little bit more about what does it look like to think right, think well, eat well, move well. And again, I didn't come up with this stuff myself. I credit James Chestnut, Dr. James Chestnut, for a lot of the things and a lot of the theories that I use. He's probably one of the most well-researched doctors that I've ever been around personally, and he has books out that are just wonderful. So again, these aren't my ideas, not my philosophies. I've adopted them from some really smart people that are much smarter than me, and I'd like to pass that information along to you guys. So if you'd like to, please just comment below and maybe even share this video with other people if you find it helpful. And if you guys want, I'm happy to dig deeper and dive a little bit deeper into these subjects, and we can get that information out to you guys now. So thank you so much for listening, and again, hopefully you'll be able to share this with other people, and just give us a like, and you guys have a great day, and try to keep your optimism up. Push the pessimism aside. Let's all have optimism. If we do that, it lowers our stress and we can be healthier.